What's happening, my Jag family? Coach Scott here, jacked40.com and shredded40.com. Today I'd like to discuss a recent research paper called Resistance Training Recommendations to Maximize Muscle Hypertrophy in Athletic Populations, and how we can take this information and apply it ourselves to build muscle after 40. Now, this research paper really looks at all of the research to date on training volume, training frequency, rep ranges, rest intervals, advanced training techniques, basically the whole gambit. We're gonna cover each of those aspects in today's video and how we can apply it to our training to build muscle after 40. First, let's take a look at volume, and what we're talking about here is the number of sets that you're going to perform per muscle group per week. And the general consensus based on all of the research that has been done to date is that it's a good idea to aim for between 10 and 20 sets per muscle group per week. They state in this paper that higher volumes have shown greater muscle growth, and they even mentioned that beyond 20 sets, like basically we don't really know the end limit for training volume. Like higher volumes have been shown to produce even greater muscle growth, even upwards of like 45 sets per muscle group per week. Now, the one thing that they do state in this paper, which is what I would recommend as well, is that volume seems to be very individual. And this is why you see a lot of conflicting information out there, because some guys may respond incredibly well to low volume training. They don't need a lot of volume in order to make progress. You got other guys who love high volume. Their body responds so much better to higher volume training. And it really comes down to one of the conclusions of this paper, which is it's a good idea to manipulate your training volume over time, ramping it up and then pulling it back, because sustaining high training volumes over time is going to beat you down. This is what I have been discussing in these Jacked After 40 Life videos for years now. It has been the application that we have followed within the Jacked After 40 Club ever since its origination. That is the cornerstone of our training, is that we use we manipulate volume as a form of progression. Another factor I'm really glad that they discussed in this recent research paper when it comes to training volume, especially at the high training volumes, is the benefit of just focusing on one or two muscle groups at that high training volume and doing low training volume for all other body parts. That is the exact approach that we follow in the Jacked After 40 Club, or Jacked After 40 specialized training plans. We've got back and biceps, where you're going to hit those muscle groups with high volume, but everything else is dialed down. You got chest and tricep specialization, where again, chest and triceps is high volume and everything else is dialed back. And then we got legs and shoulders, super high volume, and everything else dialed back. So 3 different specialized training plans that apply this exact same principle that they discussed in this recent research paper. So I was super stoked to see them approach that topic. Now, some coaches will argue that training volume is the most important factor when it comes to muscle building success, but what is most important is how you perform that volume. What goes into the volume that you're performing in your training plan? Because there's some people who will follow a low volume training plan and they see the plan on paper like, I can get through this today. It's not a ton of sets, and they give their absolute best effort to every single set, sometimes bringing every single set close to or even at momentary muscular failure. Whereas someone else who's following a high volume training plan may look at that plan on paper and go, oh man, we're in for a lot of work today. And they kind of pace themselves through the workout. And maybe they only bring that last set to momentary muscular failure, and everything else they're kind of staying well away from training failure. So if you total up the effective sets, those sets that are brought to or very, very close to momentary muscular failure, they may balance out between the two groups. And you may argue that, well, that all that extra volume was just a waste of time. That's why you'll hear some people argue that it is junk volume that you're performing there. Now, in this recent research paper, they came to the conclusion that when it comes to training failure, the research is basically inconclusive. Some say that it's advantageous to push to training failure, and others say it's not advantageous. And basically, there's also no really clear definition of what training to failure is. And we are also, as individuals, very poor at judging when we've actually hit true momentary muscular failure. So it really makes it very difficult to arrive at any conclusion of whether or not training to failure is beneficial or if we should avoid it. And some, as they discuss in this paper, In the beginning, as a novice lifter, you probably don't need to train to failure in order to experience results, but the more advanced you get in your training age, the more years of lifting, it may be more beneficial to you to challenge yourself, put in more effort, and train closer to failure. But at the same time, as they discuss in this research paper, for us men over 40, as we are aging and aging in training years, we got to be careful with how training to failure impacts our recovery. So we have to structure our workouts in a way that allows us to train to failure or close to failure, while still not interfering with our recoverability. So lots of factors go into play when it comes to training volume and training to failure. Once again, this research paper came to the same conclusion as the principles that we apply in the Jacked After 40 Club, taking a last set, best set approach, where the first couple of sets come close to momentary muscular failure, and then the last set you give it your absolute best effort and push it to true momentary muscular failure. Now, when it comes to, again, recoverability, the next thing they discuss is training frequency. And really what they conclude from all the research to date is that if volume is equated, it doesn't matter whether you train a muscle group 1 time per week, 2 times per week, or 3 times per week, the results are basically the same. There's no advantage to training muscle group 3 times per week compared to 1 time per week. I know body part split routines got a bad rap for the longest time when this whole high frequency training gained popularity there. But what the research shows is concluding is that there really is no difference when volume is equated. Now, the difference is, all right, if you're going to ramp up your training volume, we're going to try to build up to 20 sets per muscle group per week. Doing a body part split routine in that situation is not going to serve you well. Imagine doing 20 sets of chest during a workout. You'd be spent. Usually, typically, like 9 sets of chest is pretty much like you have hit your max there. If you want to push it, overreach, and do 12 sets for chest on a given day, you know you are exhausting yourself. You're going to need more time to recover. So this is where frequency has its benefits. You could train your chest, do 9 sets one day, or you could do 6 sets one day, 6 sets another day, 6 sets a third day, and hit a total of 18 sets for the week and not really feel beat up after those 6 sets. Like 6 sets of chest, you're like, you know what, that was a great pump, but I'm not exhausted. It doesn't take you as long to recover, so you can hit it again in a couple of days with 6 more sets, and again, recover really well and hit it again. Whereas if you do 12 sets of chest in a single workout, you're gonna need several days to recover from that. Or if you're gonna hit it again, you're not gonna be able to hit it with another 10 or 12 sets in just a few days. You're going to want to just stimulate it with maybe 3 sets at the most. So lots of things to consider when it comes to using frequency as a way to manage your training volume. Once again, that's exactly what we do in the Jacked After 40 Club. When we do follow higher volume training plans, we will spread out the volume through multiple training sessions per week. So we may hit a muscle group 2 times per week, 3 times per week, even at times 5 times per week when we are going up to super high volume training, which is only in the short term. But I do find when you're doing a lower volume training plan, as we are right now in this month in the Jacked After 40 Club, a body part split routine works fantastic. It works incredibly well. It's just as effective as if you were to take that training volume and work that muscle 2 or 3 times per week. It's going to be negligible. So having fun with a body part split routine during a low volume training phase works incredibly well. Another training variable they looked at in this research paper is rep ranges, and all of the research to date has come to the conclusion that if you're lifting lightweight, high repetitions, chances are you're going to build just as much muscle as if you were lifting heavyweight, lower repetitions, or even in the moderate rep range. Now, we still need more research on all this, as is the case with all of these training variables here. But what can we gather from this research, this evidence, and how we can apply it to our training? Now, if you don't enjoy lifting heavy, if it beats you down, if it really takes a toll on your joints, maybe training lighter weight, high repetitions is good for you, but there are things to consider with that as well, is that it is very fatiguing. It's metabolically demanding. And if you are going to lift with lighter weight, higher repetitions, you really got to make sure that you are training to true momentary muscular failure, because you want to make sure it's those last reps. Like if you're lifting 6 to 8 repetitions, chances are like most of those reps are going to be very effective repetitions to go towards building muscle. Whereas if you're lifting for 20 repetitions, it may not be those last 5 reps close to true momentary muscular failure that are going to get you the results. So if you're someone who isn't sure, like you're lifting, you're aiming for that 20 repetitions because it's easier on your joints, you enjoy the feel, you get to 20 repetitions and you stop because your legs are like burning, they're on fire, it's ridiculous. You stop because the burning sensation is too much, yet you know you physically could have pushed out more repetitions. You're not training true momentary muscular failure, which is why they say like we're a poor judge of what true momentary muscular failure is for ourselves. I think especially when we get to those higher rep range where you really do feel that burning sensation, and that's what causes you to stop rather than your ability to actually push that weight. So lots of things to consider, and again, like that higher repetition can take longer for you to fatigue. So even though the heavier weight beats you down and everything, like the recoverability from high rep training is a challenge as well. What I recommend, 75% of your training, your reps should be in that 6 to 12 rep range. It's got that perfect balance of you're not going to be beating yourself down. It's not so heavy that it's going to beat down your joints and everything. And you're not like pushing these sets to like marathon sessions where it's going to take forever to get to the point where you're actually working the effective reps. Still, if you're training at 6 to 12 rep range, a lot of those reps are going to be effective reps. It's not going to be so daunting. So 75% of your rep range should be 6 to 12 repetitions. And then the other 25% can be, if you enjoy some heavier lifting, work some of that in there. If you enjoy the lighter lifting, you work that in there. Next, when it comes to rest intervals, how long you're resting between sets, the consensus based on all of the recent research to date, is resting about at least 2 minutes for the big compound movements and at least 60 to 90 seconds for isolation exercises. What I like to do, again, taking a last set, best set approach, say it's a compound movement, I'll rest for like 90 seconds to 2 minutes because I'm not training to momentary muscular failure, leaving a couple reps in the tank. That last set, I want to have my absolute best energy. I want to give absolutely everything to that set. So I want to make sure I'm fully recovered. So I'm not necessarily going by the clock. I'm going to give myself at least that 2 minutes rest. If it takes 3 minutes to get to that point where I feel fully recovered and able to give the best of myself to that exercise, that's what I'm going to do. And basically it's going to be, depends on the exercise. I find for bicep exercises, even though it's an isolation exercise, like a lot of times 90 seconds isn't long enough for me to fully recover leading up to my last set, best set. So I may require even 2 minutes, 2.5 to 3 minutes to rest for that final set of the barbell curl, for example there. So again, if you're taking a last set, best set approach, just make sure you are fully recovered before moving on to that final set where you're able to give your best effort. Those sets that you're not training to momentary muscular failure, you're leaving some reps in the tank, you may be able to get by with a little bit shorter rest intervals in there. Another training variable they covered in this recent research paper is exercise selection, and I think it's pretty common knowledge to most of us, no surprise, that getting a variety of exercises in our training just makes sure that we're going to stimulate every muscle fiber possible, hitting our muscles from all different angles, and again, not in a single workout plan. It's just over time. You're gonna, of course, have some staple exercises that you want to improve upon, build upon, but working in some variety there. Again, not completely overhauling all of your exercises, just swapping out an exercise here and there, just to make sure that you are fully developing your physique and not leaving any muscle fiber untouched. Another interesting training variable that they covered in this recent research paper is advanced training techniques, and to my surprise, there really isn't a lot of research out there on a lot of these training techniques like drop sets, supersets, rest pause sets. There's some research, but not enough for them to come to the conclusion that it's that much more advantageous to do them over straight sets. But again, as they discuss in this paper, a lot of it comes down to the novelty effect, the enjoyment we get from it, and the benefits of training to momentary muscular failure. It's a way for us, especially advanced trainees who may need to put forth more effort and take that last set, best set approach, making sure that we are truly taking that muscle to the point of momentary muscular failure, even beyond that point of momentary muscular failure, to spark the adaptation response within our body. Like, that's where these techniques can be useful, but there's not a lot of research to back this up. And when it comes to us men over 40, there really isn't a lot of research that is specific to us as well. I don't even know if they will ever do research just geared towards us men over 40 and building muscle, mainly because it is such a slow and steady process for us. Like, it would have to be a very long study to see any kind of significant difference in different training protocols at this stage in the game. That would be a very expensive study to do if it's going to last that long and make sure that they are controlling all the necessary variables to, like, your nutrition, your calorie intake, and your sleep and all this stuff. There's just so many different factors. It's very difficult to study. I think that's a big thing when it comes to bodybuilding research in general, is that a lot of it is not real world applicable. It's really tough to control a lot of the different variables over time. So we just, again, with all of this research, you take it with a grain of salt and you just use it to guide you. So basically, you're not going to find anything earth-shattering in this paper or any breakthrough muscle building strategies, but for me, it was very reassuring to see that all the conclusions that came to for each of the training variables is the exact principles that we've been applying in the Jacked at 40 Club for years. And as you'll see, the guidelines are broad. You can incorporate a variety of rep ranges, experience great results. You can apply a variety of volumes and experience great results. You can apply a variety of exercises, get great results. But really, it is how you work them into a strategic plan. So a lot of people look at, I've heard it, a lot of people look at this research paper and go, well, basically everything works, so I'm just going to stick with just doing whatever the hell I want, doing whatever I enjoy. And that is not the takeaway you want to get from this paper. It's taking all of that information and applying it strategically. Yes, everything works, but there's pros and cons to each of them, and it's a matter of formulating a plan that is going to work them to the best of their abilities and produce the best results for yourself. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the recent research paper, Resistance Training Recommendations to Maximize Muscle Hypertrophy in Athletic Populations. Again, I'll include a link down below in the description. Highly recommend you give it a read. I would love to hear any takeaways that you gained from it, how you plan on making any changes or adjustments to your training plan based on these recommendations, and what you find suits you best when it comes to training volumes, training frequencies, rep ranges, rest periods, all that good stuff. Drop a comment down below, share your experiences with me. Again, we're always learning and growing together. We are all different. As they conclude with a lot of these things, we all respond differently to different training volumes. We all respond differently to different rep ranges. Some of us thrive from the heavy weights, some of us thrive from the lighter weights. So I want to hear what works best for you, how you've been making any changes and modifications as you are lifting over 40 with decades of lifting experience under your belt. Can't wait to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's video, please do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it. If you know a fellow bro who would benefit from watching today's video, do me a favor and share it with them. And before you go, don't forget to download your free guide, Jacked After 40. Have yourself an amazing day. Catch you in the next video.